Alright, today I'm going to talk about the electronic ignition for the 1994 Thunderbird supercharged electronic ignition system. Reason being, I had to do it myself. Did all the searches on Google, tried to read all the comments and questions, and basically just left me in the dark. Had no clue what was going on. Had advice from people at AutoZone. Check this, check that, change this, change that, but nobody really even knew how it worked. So I'm just making this video for other shade tree mechanics. And probably not going to get paid, so you know, a thank you in the comments is always good to see after you watch it and think that it helped you, which is not specific to this car. It's called the EEC-IV ignition system, computerized ignition system. Now there's also, later on, there came the EEC-V, and I'm not sure what came before it, but basically that's the system. So you might have that system in your pickup truck around that year. You'd have to look it up. So to get started, like it's a no start condition. Cranks, no start. Okay, don't know why. Got gas in the tank, start doing research, start trying to figure things out. Went to AutoZone, guy said, oh, that's usually the crank sensor. Change that out, it'll probably start. I'm like, okay, so I gotta jack the car up, buy a part for $85, change it, not really knowing whether or not that's the problem. I'm like, that doesn't seem like a good idea, throwing parts and money and work and labor into something that you don't understand. You don't even understand what you're doing yet. So one of the things that I noticed was that when I turned the key on, the fuel pump stayed on. Normally it would go on for a few seconds, build up its pressure, then turn itself off, but it stayed on. So that's a clue that there's something wrong. So when I looked it up online, it said that the fuel pump relay turns it back off, turns it on and off. So I'm like, okay, so somewhere inside there's some kind of clock or some kind of device, electrical device that tells the fuel tank. So I ordered one in the mail. I waited 3 days, got here, switched them out, did the same thing. So if you read that the fuel pump relay turns off the fuel, it does not. What turns off the fuel is the computer. So if your fuel is on, stays on, your fuel pump stays on, you hear it buzzing when you first turn the key on, that's a signal right away that you have a bad computer. And the reason that the computers go bad, apparently, one of the reasons, there's probably more than one, but they have capacitors in them that have acid. And over time, the acid leaks out. So I'm assuming, because I now have a car, they said about 13 to 15 years into it, the computer doesn't work because of all the acid leaked out of the capacitor. So when you're talking about a 90, 10 plus 17 or 18, it's 28 years into that computer with capacitors leaking acid. Now you'll see online that there's people taking them apart and changing them, but I'm not that good of an electrician, and I'm not hooking up soldering guns and all of that. If that's for you, that's fine. Go ahead. So then I went out on a search to buy one, and AutoZone said that they can't get it for me. Then I called the place that remanufactures them, and they gave me a number, and then I went to O'Reilly's, who then got the computer for me for $110, and I had to turn in my old one. But the problem is these computers are not always going to be available. So I'm almost thinking that you should buy one and then put it in the freezer. I mean, cars sit in sub-zero temperature and are still supposed to start. So by freezing it, I would say that the capacitor shouldn't leak the acid if it's frozen in the freezer. And then if you go on a long trip, you can take it out of the freezer, put it in the trunk as a backup, so that you don't have a breakdown and have to have the car towed. If you know it's the computer, you can switch it out with the backup computer. In other words, if your first computer went bad, you would buy another one, you'd buy another one, you'd buy the second one, and then just put it in the freezer. That's my thinking. Because if you just leave it sit on the shelf for 13 years, it's going to leak all the acid out. So you have a backup computer for when they stop making them, they stop rebuilding them and manufacturing them. Oh, you could always find maybe somebody that can do that. The more rare it becomes, the more expensive it becomes, the more trouble you're going to have, the more research you have to do to find the persons or the company that will do it for you and rebuild yours. Now, some have to be reprogrammed. If you have this particular system and you get the number off the top of your computer, if you just replace that number, it should not have to be reprogrammed. So I do not have to reprogram it. So let me stop there for a second. Okay. I'm gonna go over this breakout box with you a little bit later, because that's sort of getting more technical. The first thing that you need to buy is this Chilton manual. Okay, hold on a second. I got these. Okay, so here, Ford Thunderbird Mercury Cougar 1983 to 92 repair manual. This is what really solved my problems, but it took me a while to understand this system, because I've never dealt with car computers before until now. Always had older vehicles, but the problem with the older vehicles is the fuel mileage. Carburetors are just not as good as the computerized systems as far as gas mileage and idling and hesitation, and all of that stuff is all supposed to be solved by the computer. So you almost have to, I think even now I'm going to put a computerized carburetor on my older Camaro because of the hesitations at the green light, and the fuel economy is bad, and the idle mixture screw don't work, and choke, and all of that stuff can all be computerized now. So in this book there's a number of different systems, so you have to match the system to your car. One of the ways to tell is by, you know, looking at the components. If you can see that, you got ignition module, distributor, coil, looks like that. So by viewing the pictures, till you match up the one that matches your car. So now I want to tell you about my experience in AutoZone. So I take this, when I look, it used to be that I had an old Chrysler Mopar, and they had a gold box on the firewall, on the fender. Well, it could have been on the firewall, but that was the basic computer for the system, like a 72. And that would go bad, and you would go to the junkyard and get another one and replace it, and it would run again. So I thought that this gray box here, which they call the DIS ignition module. So it's function, selects coil, drives the tach, provides ignition, and then when you see it, let me move the camera now. When you see it, right there, whoops, it's right there. It looks like that's what would be wrong with it. Okay. So I removed it, and I took it up to AutoZone to have it tested. So you got to pull your plugs off each side, unbolt your 4 bolts, and then you'll see underneath there's this white greasy paste. What you would think is lithium grease, but in the book it tells you that it's not lithium grease. It is, it's a thermal white grease that is not white lithium grease. It's for the temperature. So after some searching, you'll find that a lot of the auto parts guys don't even know what you're talking about, but here you get the part number from AutoZone. SL203 is the part number for the grease that goes on the bottom of it. If you don't use this, you're taking the risk of overheating that electronic device, your DIS. Okay, you're taking a risk. Goes underneath this, you're taking a risk of overheating it by assuming that that stuff is white lithium grease. It may be similar, but this is specifically designed for temperature something or another. So when we take a look at this, we see that you got our major components. This is your basis start to understand the system. This is the computer, okay? Ignition functions, calculates spark angle, determines coil turn on and firing time. This is your ignition coil. Wires, cylinders 3 and 4, cylinders 2 and 6, cylinders 1 and 5. Tachometers, not really necessary. Here you have camshaft sensor. This is important. Crankshaft sensor. This is important. And so here's your components for the ignition system. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. If any of these is no longer functioning, it's not going to start. Now, if you have a no crank, that's a separate system. This is partially. You can even hot wire the forgot the name of this right away, but anyway, you could stick a screwdriver here and it'll crank no matter what's going on, because this is running a wire from your ignition to your starter. So by crossing the right wire, that may not be the right wire, but you cross the right wire. Okay, so now I will show you the cam sensor, which I can't even really see because it's buried underneath the snout of the supercharger. You can't really get to it without, you might be able to get to it without removing the supercharger, but anyway, it's a round device with wires hooked up to it underneath the supercharger snout. So here is your coil pack that I showed you in the picture, and as you can see, this is quite a mess. As far as, here's some other sensors. Okay, got some air sensors. There's like lots of sensors, which is where we get into the breakout box. But that's not necessarily, those sensors aren't necessarily going to stop your car from starting. These are going to stop your car from starting. Okay, now the rule is, generally, as you do your research, if the crank sensor isn't working, you're not getting spark to the spark plugs. If your camshaft sensor is not working, you're not getting fuel through your fuel injectors. So the way that you do that is you get a spark plug, inline spark plug tester from $10 from AutoZone. That'll tell you if you're getting spark. So the engine will crank, get spark, and not get start because of the fact that your fuel injectors are not getting the fuel. What they do is they ground really fast and have a blinking type of system, same as a spark, same time frame, but it's grounding. It's getting the signal from the camshaft and grounding your fuel injectors. So when I saw that it was getting spark in my vehicle, I assumed that the camshaft sensor is working properly, therefore I don't have to jack up the car and change that. However, this may have gone bad, camshaft sensor, or this may have gone bad, the computer. Now, let's talk about this. How do we tell if this is bad? The gray box. Well, I took it to AutoZone, and come to find out, they have a machine for testing this. The problem is that the people that work there don't really, most of them don't understand the machine, don't have it, so they lie and they say the machine is broken or we can't test that. But they theoretically, they all have the testing machine. It's finding somebody that knows how to use the testing machine. So it took me like some persuasion and talking them into going in the back, and then they have a booklet where you match up the picture. What they were trying to do is they were looking up the part number which matched the picture. Then they took the part number and tried to match it to the book of the testing machine, if you follow that logic. But the testing machine part number does not match in the book of the testing machine, the part number in the computer. So you have to match it up with the picture. Then once you match the picture up, it tells you what connectors to hook up, that you hook up to the testing device. Then you press the button, and then the green lights come on, like a row of green lights, and then a green light at the end says that it's working. This is like a $75, $80 part. So the green light at the end says it's working means there's nothing wrong with this. Even though you might think there's something wrong with it because your engine's not starting, there's nothing wrong with it. So that brings us to, how do we know? Okay, if we have spark, it's cranking, this is probably good, this is good. Okay, now we're down to 2 components. Okay, because we figured out that what's happening is it's not grounding the fuel injectors. Okay, either this is not doing it or this is not doing it. This we can't get to unless we take the snoot of the supercharger off, which we can't. You have to lift the whole supercharger up, because you'll learn about that in another video where I talked about repairing the supercharger. This you can get to, and it's $110. So you figure the labor to test that versus the labor of exchanging that. But then you realize, okay, that the fuel pump is staying on. You got to ask yourself, is the fuel pump staying on because the camshaft sensor isn't working? No, it wouldn't care, because you haven't even cranked the engine yet. That leads us to the last option. The computer's bad. You understand? So there's no reason to change your cam sensor. No reason to change this. No reason to change this. No reason to change this. Because this was what went bad. So by process of logic and elimination, you can figure out which component has gone bad. You see? So then you put another thing that you can do. You can buy a tester for this, which I didn't do because I realized that it was working. But you can also buy what they call a Noid light tester. Okay, that was this was $50. I already figured out that I wasn't getting fuel injection because I was getting spark and I had gas, and the gas. Oh, and I also changed the fuel filter just to make sure that it was getting enough. Oh, I forgot. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. This is the like you pin this to your windshield while you crank it, but somebody has to crank it, and you see if these lights flash. So you find the one that matches your fuel injector. Okay, so you come over here to where your fuel injector, one of your fuel. Okay, so right here you see the fuel injector, one of the plugs. I don't really want to pull it out because I've already tested it. So I'm just going to tell you that's where it is. And you find the one that matches that. You plug it in to the wire, and then this light is going to flash if it's working. Okay, which looks like one of these, but inside of here. That's so you can hook it up to the windshield while you're cranking it, and it sends the light through whatever plexiglass stuff, glass, so you can see if this is blinking, then that's blinking, you know, like the old hook a string up to 2 cans kind of thing. So these are all basically the same, they just have different plugs. Okay, so that's your noise light tester. Okay, now the other thing that you want to test is your fuel pressure. So that is this right here, looks like the thing for your tire, but you can't just use like an air gauge. You go to AutoZone and you rent the fuel pressure tester for 150 bucks, and there's various ways to test it, but if you got between 35 and 40 pounds of pressure, that's not the problem. If it's below 30 pounds per square inch of pressure, that could be the problem. But the first thing you would do is change your fuel filter. And the fuel pump relay is in the trunk. Okay, so you go back here, here's your fuel pump relay, here is your crash switch. If you bumped it into something, this red thing pops up. You push that back down. If you bumped into something hard enough, that turns the fuel off in case there's an accident. And you change this if you want to test your fuel pump relay. And then under here where my foot is the filter, which has kind of a funky hookup mechanism, so you got to make sure you get the exact right filter or it won't line up and match. And now I'm gonna have to get the key, I guess. Now we're going to show you the computer, which is what was wrong. So let me get the key. And where's the key? Oh, it's in my pocket. Okay, this part could probably be edited, but anyway, we're gonna grab the breakout box. Now you can do some more minute testing of all your sensors, which I'm not going to do because it's running good right now, but if you really wanted to test it, oh, and another clue that it was the computer is when you do the check engine light number sequence tester, which is, oh, where'd those things go? Oh, here we go. This thing with this thing. There's also this one, actually has two of them, which who knows why they designed. I can't probably see that too good, but anyway, that wasn't working. I couldn't get any readings. That's another clue the computer isn't working. So you go searching for the computer and you find out that it's buried way up inside. I'm gonna need to get the light for you. Way up. Get the light. And okay. Way up, buried way up inside there, bolted in. Took like all my strength to pull out the plastic that's covering it up, so you can't see it, you can't get to it. There's those numbers I was telling you about earlier. There's a bolt on the end of this, and that's the computer that runs the car. Okay, and that's what I had to replace. It took all my strength to pull the plastic out, get to that thing, and now what this does, okay, is this is called a breakout box, and what it does is it hooks between the computer, the box, some testing wires, and again in this book, on the next page, it's showing the components here again. This is the breakout box, pinpoint test diagnosis. Okay, so then you begin, if you really want to get involved, you start testing these things. Check for spark during crank. Check PIP EEC at crankshaft sensor. Check PIP EEC continuity. Determine missing spark combination. Check plugs and wires. Check DIS module. Check ignition ground at DIS module. Check DIS module. Check all coil pack circuits. Isolate DIS module shorts. Check coil pack something. Check ignition coil root circuit. Isolate harness shorts. Check PIP and DIS module. Check spout. All of this is using this box and some other components, not just the box. Okay, we see here, check between positive J18 C2D and negative J60 battery ground. Jumper 18, see, jumper 18 and 60. So you got 60. See, there's 60 pins. Each pin, there's another video on YouTube some guy made. If you count, there's 60 pins. So you have, so by this sits between them so that you're like in between the pins now while the car is running or not running, and you have an overload circuit, and you take these wires, jumper wires, and you test. I haven't even done this yet, so I'm talking very amateurish, but you use this chart to test the circuits. Okay, I haven't used this yet, so just to give you an idea, if you tried to buy this new, it's like $700. If you bought it good used, it might be $300 on eBay. Poorly used, $100. This one looked fairly good. It just popped up a couple days after I started looking for them, and I bid and got it for $50 plus delivery charge, $10 on eBay. I had it sent to my house, so it's there when I need it. If I want to really get involved into testing all the different sensors for this vehicle through the computer. So you're not going to find this anywhere at the current time. You're not going to find this information anywhere on the internet. I even called the dealer, Ford dealer. They don't even want to deal with this stuff anymore. They're like, no, that car's too old. I can't tell you. I just asked him where the computer was. He said, I don't know. that car's too old, we don't deal it, we don't have the diagrams anymore in our computers, we don't care, you're on your own. So that's why I make these videos, okay? So if you're working on your car, you're not on your own. And you also, if you ever want to check your some of your on this box, actually, you see that EEC relay? Okay. Which is, if you put this on correctly, is that one. There's nothing under it. It looks like it's going to turn on and off your EEC-IV, but there's no wires going to it. It's a fake. This car does not have that circuit, which might take you a while to figure out too. So, trying to think of what else I could tell you about it, but yeah, that's how you get it started. So hopefully that helps you.